At 21:02 local time, the Boeing 727 entered controlled airspace over Chicago. Controllers allowed United Flight 389 to descend, first to 24,000 feet and then to 14,000 feet. The crew carried out all instructions precisely, and the captain was still at ease, as he had done hundreds of times. After 10 minutes, the crew received further instructions to descend to 6,000 feet. At this point, the plane crossed the shoreline of Lake Michigan, only about 72 kilometers away from O'Hare Airport. According to the weather report, the weather was clear and visibility was good, but on the night of the counterattack, special conditions were formed over Root Lake. A slight haze of smoke was suspended in the air. It was not fog, but a mist that blurred the boundaries. When flying over the water far from the shoreline at night, one falls into a kind of trap. The pilot calls it the black hole effect. There is black lake water below and black sky above. No horizon can be seen. There are no lights, no cities, and no lines of roads. The world outside the window becomes a uniform darkness. The only reliable things at this time are the gauges, artificial horizon, altimeter, heading indicator, lift rate indicator, and navigation gauges. When the aircraft enters the active descent phase, the Boeing 727 has excellent aerodynamic characteristics. If the engine is adjusted to a small throttle and the nose is slightly depressed, the Boeing 727 will accelerate and descend like an arrow. The descent rate reached 2,000 feet per minute, which is about 10 meters per second. This is a standard but strong descent. At 21:18, the controller handed the aircraft over to the Prohibition Control. The captain switched the frequency to establish contact with the Prohibition Control. The Prohibition Control saw the target from the radar and everything was normal. Control order: Flight 389 continued on the outside direction and ran to the 14th right. The altimeter is set at 30.04 inches, the time is 1 second, and the second has passed. Routine landing readiness checks are taking place in the cockpit. Goldwing sets the altimeter. Open. Please fasten your seatbelts. Indicator lights. Altitude: 10,000 feet, 8,000 feet, 7,000 feet. The aircraft should begin to reduce the descent rate at this time and ground to the designated 6,000 feet. But on the radar screen, the controller sees an anomaly. The altitude return is updated every few seconds, but shows numbers that shouldn't be there: 5,000 feet, 4,000 feet, 3,000 feet. The aircraft broke through the command altitude. He did not slow down, did not level, and the descent rate remained at about 2,000 feet per minute. The Boeing airliner was hurtling into darkness at more than 450 kilometers per hour. At 21:20 local time, controllers realized something was wrong. The altitude return was getting closer and closer to the lake level. The controller pressed the call button and asked Flight 389 to check the altitude, but the wireless power was only aggressive. The controller called again, and the tone became urgent and severe. But the green light spot on the radar disappeared after one last flash, as if it had been turned off by someone. 21:21. Controllers mess around on all frequencies for a long time. The crews of other nearby planes stared into the darkness and said to the controllers, "Sajago, come in. We see flashes of light on the water, like a fire." The Coast Guard immediately ruled out boats and helicopters. Hours later, rescuers found the crash site 48 kilometers from shore. The scene was shocking. There was no full fuselage, no wings, no life-saving method. All that floated on the water was debris fuselages, skin paper, personal belongings, and large tracts of aviation kerosene debris. The form only says one thing: the force of the impact is extremely great. The plane did not glide, did not land with masters and apprentices, but crashed directly into the water at cruising speed with a tiny right tilt. At this speed, who is harder than concrete? The plane disintegrated instantly, killing all 30 people on board. The investigation began the next morning into why a perfectly normal Boeing airliner, piloted by an experienced crew, slammed into the lake without evasion. Investigators at the Civil Aviation Board, the forerunner of the modern National Transportation Safety Board, first ruled out the possibility that sabotage had caused the plane to be destroyed. No traces of explosives were found, nor was there damage to the engine's faulty turbine blades. Analysis showed that all three engines were running at high power at the moment of impact, and the plane was fully powered and fully controllable. So investigators turned their attention to the crew. They had considered the possibility of a heart attack on the pilot, but an examination of the body under very limited conditions found no signs of sudden health problems. The biggest difficulty in the investigation is the lack of information. The 1965 black box was so primitive that the cockpit voice recorder was destroyed, the casing shattered, and the tape disappeared. The parameter recorder provided only extremely simple data. Speed, altitude, heading, and national data confirmed that the aircraft 1-to-1 dropped evenly at 2,000 feet per minute, or about 10 meters per second, until it hit the water. The pilots did not lift the nose of the plane, as if they had no idea they had reached the lake. So investigators noticed the invisible killer of aviation at the time, the barometric altimeter. The Boeing 727 used a three-pointer altimeter, with long hands numbering hundreds of feet, thick and short hands numbering thousands of feet, and small triangular hands numbering tens of thousands of feet. The problem is readability, especially in a state of fatigue or stress, where a quick glance is very easy to misread. If the target altitude is 6,000 feet, but accidentally misreads the position of the fine needle indicating 10,000 feet, then 6,000 feet may be mistaken for 16,000 feet. The investigator's assumption is simple but chilling. Airport habits are instruments, and he may have skimmed the altimeter. His brain misread the pointer in anticipation that we were still high. The captain probably thought he was still at 16,000 feet, when in fact the plane had descended below 6,000 feet. The co-pilot was busy communicating with control and resetting the navigation, and the aviation engineer focused on the operation of the system. No one kept staring at the altitude, and it was that black hole effect outside the window. The paddy fields merged without any visual reference. The altitude of the high-speed pilot was already too low. The official investigation report is succinct, but it is frustrating. The cause of the accident was the crew's failure to stop the descent at the specified altitude. The cause is unknown, but the aviation community has learned a clear lesson. The crash of United Airlines Flight 389 sentenced the death penalty to the three-pointer altimeter. Studies have shown that pilots often make errors of up to 10,000 feet when reading the meter. Later, the three-pointer altimeter was replaced by a more intuitive altimeter with a digital scroll wheel. In addition, the airline also reformulated the rules of cockpit cooperation, and the co-pilot must verbally repeat and confirm the altitude reading during the descent. At the same time, the terrain proximity warning system GPWS has also been put into use since then. Today, if a plane descends too fast or flies too low without giving up the landing gear, a computer will loudly warn the pilot. In the cockpit of the past, the captain and his crew did not have this electronic guardian. Today, in the silt and darkness of Lake Michigan, the shards of the brand new Boeing still lie. 30 passengers who just wanted to go home on a Monday night fell victim to a series of tragic coincidences, visual illusions, equipment design flaws, and human limitations. Aviation is so safe today because every rule is written, including United Airlines Flight 389.